Okay, obvious, let us begin. Not sure if Dr. Chibaya is going to join. So let me begin the session and then I will hand over to you very soon. Is that okay? Yeah, obvious, can you hear me? Hello, obvious? Yeah.
Hi, Sanjay. Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So let's begin. I will open the session and then I will hand over to you very soon.
Okay. Did I hear you well? Your audio with echo. Can you maybe just remove the video? It might improve so that we hear you well.
Okay, let me fix it. No, it's okay.
Hello, Chief?
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
it
now
better now?
yes, I can hear you now. So can you repeat what you wanted?
Okay. Yeah, 1 second. So I will begin as Dr. Chibaya. I'm not sure where he is. So and then I will hand it over to you for the best practices in procurement to take it towards the dialogue session.
No problem. I can take it on. Do you want to share the screen?
Yes, it's already shared.
Yeah,
Do you
you
see
can.
my screen?
Yes, I can see the cover. You can, yeah, scroll down to where I should begin.
Yeah, no, I will begin and then I will hand over to you. Okay. So I
Okay.
will call your name once it is complete. Okay. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining this webinar. Let me try to have my videos momentarily and then I will stop it. CEO of B-Skill and also a public health specialist working in health supply chains for more than a decade now. This webinar has been specifically designed for Zimbabwe and Botswana, although I see there are some people from other countries, so you are also welcome, most welcome on this webinar. We have guest speaker, an expert in global procurement, Mr. Obvious Mahonzi. He will also be facilitating this session with me and talking about some strategic choices in procurement and what he has seen during his professional experience. Although ideally Dr. Maya from IPH Zimbabwe. So maybe Wilson Chandomba, if you are here and if you can speak very quickly, maybe you can speak on IPH's behalf and begin this webinar. Wilson, if you can hear me.
Yes, thank you, Sanjay. Good day to everyone. Welcome to the webinar being hosted by B-Skilled in collaboration with IAPHL Zimbabwe and Botswana chapters in CMCOMS. Thank you very much, Mr. Sanjay and Mr. Mahunze, for organizing this webinar. I think we can go ahead. Thank you.
Excellent. Maybe we should also hear from Makosi Sibanda, who is representing Botswana IPHL chapter. Makosi, maybe very quickly, if you want to say hi.
Oh, hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Makosi Sibanda. I'm based in Botswana and I'm heading the IPHL chapter in Botswana. Welcome to the webinar. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Makosi. So without wasting too much of time, let's quickly get into the webinar. So this webinar, the objective of this webinar is for you to gain an understanding of the concept and planning of strategic procurement. Now I know a lot of you may work in procurement or in general supply chain. We've seen procurement to be a key issue in many countries and not just in Zimbabwe or Botswana. So the idea for this webinar is to provide you with some, unique concepts of strategic procurement in a way where procurement is just not one activity, but it's a cycle within the supply chain and needs to be looked at from a more holistic perspective rather than just one activity. Then we will also talk about some procurement strategies and best practices due course in this webinar, which you can use in your workplaces, and maybe you may want to read more about those best practices and strategies. Um, if you want to ask questions, best would be writing in the chat because there are not many spaces for everyone to speak. So we would request everyone to write in the chat for questions. And if there are any Q&A opportunities, then please raise your hands. We will nominate people to speak, and then you may ask your questions directly on the webinar. As you ask your question on the chat, we will be answering them directly. But if there are many questions, then we may not be able to answer all of them in this 2 hours. Then we will, send you the responses by email after the webinar. Okay. Please keep your microphones muted if you are not speaking, so that it does not create any disturbances for the audience. Okay. So let's begin. So what is strategic procurement? We have to quickly ask what that means. If you see on the screen, the definition is there. It's a comprehensive and long-term process that strives to procure the commodity, whether it is pharmaceuticals, medications, medical devices, supplies, or anything else for that matter, in the appropriate quality and cost, in a timely manner to satisfy demand. Because as you may have seen, if the products do not reach the population in the right time when they're needed, then it is not really of any use. Like for example, malaria bed nets, mosquito bed nets. If those bed nets reach the population after the rainy season is over, then we know that most of them have already suffered the disease, and now the bed nets are not really that useful. Ideally, the bed nets should be distributed to people even before the beginning of the rains, so that people can protect themselves from the mosquitoes that come with the rains. So, from a procurement term, the procurement of those bed nets should have happened in time so that they can be distributed before the rainy season. So, to ensure all that happens in time, we use the technique of strategic procurement, whereby we procure those supplies in time, in the right quality and cost to satisfy the demand of the population. So the process of strategic procurement, it involves the entire organization. You may have seen in your organization that there are departments or teams, like some people are, focused more on programs, clinical aspect, some are focused on forecasting, demand planning. There might be a very specific procurement team, then a warehousing, distribution, transportation team, and then of course for health services, there will be doctors, pharmacists, nurses who are at the end of the spectrum of one department and one team. It's actually the job of the entire organization, because it has to be planned in that way so that all the stakeholders in the organization are informed that when those products are going to arrive. in what condition, in what quality, everyone should know. So the data has to be gathered from everyone, and since it's a long-term process, um, so it needs to be planned with the entire organization rather than just one department. Um, it utilizes information on suppliers, market trends, pricing, transactions, and other factors that determine the most suitable pharmaceuticals, medication, equipment, appropriate suppliers, and prices for those items. It also helps ensure that procurement approaches are developed to achieve value for money and to satisfy the objectives of the organization or the program. So it's important to keep in mind that one of the key objectives of strategic procurement is value for money. That the amount of money that you're spending, you are buying the most appropriate product in the correct price and quality. So that is what value for money is. But if you ask in summary, what is the use of strategic procurement? There are these key 5 points on your screen, which is to increase efficiency and reduce procurement time, make procurement streamlined rather than an ad hoc activity, reduce risk and improve quality of products, improve fairness and transparency, because in procurement, that's also very important how you treat your suppliers, and of course, deliver value for money. So these are the key uses of strategic procurement and why procurement should be looked at from a strategic perspective rather than just one ad hoc activity. But okay, we need to buy something, and how do we buy it? You know, so rather than this, we should be thinking about more holistic approach of how we can create the best value for our patients. And when we talk from a value perspective, then we think more holistic. Moving on, if you need to set up a strategic procurement system or a strategic procurement division, then there are three key steps. I mean, looking into perspective, there are three key steps that will help you set up strategic procurement. The first is analysis. You need to analyze where you are, what is your need, what kind of products you're buying, where you are buying from, what kind of budget you have, what kind of environment it is. You need to look at the market. You need to look at risk. So collect data about what's happening right now and what is it that you're trying to do. Based on that data, you need to figure out some choices. That, okay, this is what we want to be or where we want to be. So this is how we want our procurement to be. This is how we will assign roles and responsibilities to each and every team, individuals, departments, to be able to eventually procure the right products in the right time, in the best quantity and the lowest price, for example. And then once you figure out your choices, that okay, this is what we want to do and this is how we want to reach that point, then you plan that okay, how do we get to that point? So then you prepare your procurement strategies and your action plans, your procurement plan, to make sure you reach that endpoint that you have decided in step number 2. So in many organizations, you may have seen a procurement plan, you may have seen a procurement strategy, but you should ask yourself that how did you arrive at that procurement strategy? So strategic procurement, when we talk about it, it involves all three things. That you need to continuously analyze your market, your capability, the risks and everything, continuously evaluate your choices, and then continuously make changes or modify your procurement strategies and plans, so that if there is any changes in the external environment, you can adapt to it. And I'll give you one example here, which everyone knows, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. By the end of 2019, no one knew that something like this is going to come. No procurement team around the world had made any planning of that sort. Maybe some generic planning by some organizations of any disaster or some sort of outbreak, but not really a global pandemic. So what happened for many countries during the pandemic, especially in Africa, where organizations are pretty much dependent on imports, you must have noticed that many countries had stopped exports, many countries had stopped imports. So if there is a blanket on imports and exports, how are you going to get your products in? And there was no plan about that. Slowly it started to happen, but it took a long medicines, the pharmaceuticals, and essential and started, resuming, resuming the import and export of those products. But even then, they need to make sure that all necessary security and safety steps were being, those steps were being taken to make sure that whoever is involved in those export and import procedures, they don't get infected. But if somehow organizations had created strategies for these kind of risks, because if some organizations had analyzed that some sort of global pandemic can happen, or maybe even now, uh, I don't know how many of you in your organization have seen a detailed risk management plan for a pandemic. If a pandemic like COVID-19 would hit us again, do you think your organization will do better? Maybe write on chat. I invite you all to write on chat that, okay, if a pandemic like COVID-19 will hit us again, would your organization be better prepared? Or more specifically, the procurement side of things, will they be better prepared? Do you think they are working on something like a risk management plan, or some kind of strategic choices on how to procure your supplies and pharmaceuticals and products in case import and export, from some type of disruption happens again. So anyone who has some ideas, please write on chat, or if you want to share an experience from the pandemic which you all faced, that's also very important. But moving on. Again, these three steps that I showed you here, these are explained in much more detail here. I'm not going to read everything, but under analysis, like I said, we need to decide, we need to analyze what's the program, what kind of environment that we are in terms of our funding capacity, borrowing capacity. It's going to procure within the country or dependent on imports, foreign currency reserve. What about the market suppliers, their capacity, supply positioning, in terms of sustainability, we can like that as well. What are the risks that the procurement can face or your programs can face? Based on that, we create our choices, and based on the choices, we plan for the procurement, which is what kind of procurement methods to use, bidding procedures, contracting strategy, preferential treatment for any local suppliers, trade terms, quality assurance, finding the funds for the procurement. So all these things are dependent on what you are trying to do. Okay. So we can have a very small instance of Q&A. Maybe I'll just take one odd question if anyone wants to ask something at this stage. Because after this, we are going towards strategic procurement, like procurement strategies and best practices. So for the introduction about strategic procurement and how to set it up, if you have any questions, if you want to put it on chat, or if you want to speak, this is the time. You can raise your hand, or you can also put the question on chat. You want to move ahead. Don't think anyone has any questions. So very quick, I will hand it over to you to take us through to the e-procurement best practice, and then we'll have the dialogue about the next steps post you finish after you finish e-procurement. So just before obvious begins, so there are some best practices that you can look at for strategic procurement. For example, conducting market research. It is very important to know your market, your suppliers, market trends, very important to know those things. We also able to create very clear and detailed policies and procedures when that should happen. So very clear policies and procedures are totally understood by the team. Then your trust and quality. You should be fair to your suppliers. This is a place where a lot of corruption happens. So you need to make sure that there is no corruption when you're undertaking procurement. You should be able to establish long-term relationships with your suppliers. You should ensure that procurement decisions are based on value for money rather than just cost. That is a very common mistake that organizations make when they don't base their procurement based on cost. So instead of just using the lowest bidder, you should always look at the quality and the value that they are providing, then looking at the cost. Okay, because otherwise, lowest cost may not always mean the best value or best cost, or even the best service for that matter. Monitoring supply performance is very important. You should not be working with suppliers who perform poorly or they don't listen to what you're saying. You should be able to find new suppliers. And to do that, you need to be able to monitor the performance continuously so that you can create a record. And based on that, you can, relegate on the contracts or renegotiate or even cancel the contracts. Point number 8, you should be able to collaborate with multiple stakeholders in the market. Like for public sector, you should be able to collaborate with donors, partners, to pool resources and look at other alternatives. So collaboration is also very important. And finally, point number 7, which obvious will take much more into detail with e-procurement. You should be able to leverage technology for procurement as well. Now, in most organizations, traditionally, procurement has been a manual and paper-based system, and hence there were multiple ways to cheat the system. The corruption in procurement was widespread, and it used to take a very long time because there were multiple officers, so there was you make like one file, so everyone had to put their signature on the file, and the file is to travel from one office to the next. Eventually, once the supplier has fulfilled their end of the services, the same file would go to the payment team, and it would take an eternity for payment as well, because then there would be another set of approvals, and the file would go to multiple offices again for signature. So to manage all those issues, procurement officers and procurement organizations across the world are now using e-procurement. There is an example on the screen from Rwanda where they leverage technology and stakeholder collaboration. But I will come to that to invite Obvious to take us through the basic concepts of e-procurement, and then we will look at case study and so on. So Obvious, over to you. Maybe if you can also switch on your camera for a moment, people can see you, and then please take us through the next slides as well. Obvious. Yeah. August, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Yes.
Sorry, I was on mute. I was speaking whilst on mute. I can hear you. Thank you so much, Chief. So, just as in form of continuity, thank you so much for the rundown, especially on the overall procurement issues. Now, having done all that, how then do we implement? Because supply chain becomes a support service. So you need to then have some system that can then harness all those many things that we're talking about, collaboration, everything else. We are now set, we are now ready. We now want to implement or execute the budget or the planned activities for that year. So then we have to come up with a system, some organized way of how we are going to procure. I know as it stands, we have got various ways on how to do it. What is happening now? It's a big, robust system that you cannot say, from this call, you cannot just change overnight. It needs to be understood. It needs to be reasoned why. It needs to be checked the resources. If you have got the budget to implement that and all those things. So that's why we then talk of the modern way, modern technology on e-procurement. It's an electronic procurement or an online procurement that we want to then just briefly look into. Why e-procurement then? So that number one, it streamlines all the processes, making more efficient and transparent. Everyone would want visibility. Everyone would want to see how things happened. And even the suppliers or the vendors that would be supporting us, they would want to be communicated with. So it is the how, what system do we want to undertake? So there are so many platforms. Is it under Sage? You can go for Cooper, you can go for, there are various, and some of them we are already using. So that is all about to achieve efficiency and transparent. We want to communicate with our vendors. We want to also buy within our own departments. We want to also, at the end of the day, extract the reports so that everybody understands the reports that are then made up of our procurement. So it reduces operational costs for sure. Operational costs, we are talking of all the paper-based processes. Yes, it's okay. It has got that visibility as a paper process, but imagine the labor, imagine the current software processes of late, which is the latest technology. Now, in the past, we used to maybe call upon each other, meet at some hotel or some place to talk into all these things. But because of the technology, we are now riding on it. We are all over, the world now, but we are talking together. That's what an e-procurement system is all about, what it encourages. It encourages or it increases speed, it increases competition, it improves even from the supplier performance themselves. The supplier has to also, respond. If we say we want our commodity and needs by date, like maybe end of this month, the system is communicating in between the times when the supplier then delays. It is visible to say, no, our needs by date order was indicating 31 May. So how come it is now, with the variance of being delivered late? So that is it. The supplier performance measure that an electronic system can always automatically refer. Now, even data accuracy, because it's electronic, everything will be transparent, everything will be real time, decisions can be done instantly. That is the beauty of an electronic procurement system or e-procurement that we are talking into. Next slide, Chief. So this is what I was indicating to determine the best system. One is to then look at their cost effectiveness, all the things that Sanjay indicated, at the end of the day, it's all about cost effectiveness, enhancing our operations. So procurement planning is also very essential, especially when you acquire the goods and services. It gives you that timely and cost-effective visibility. It shows you, when you do your reach out or your requisition, it should be instant. It should then automatically communicate with the vendor, who then prepares or mobilizes their resources to fulfill that order. So that is the beauty of electronic procurement. And when you do the planning around that system, that you will see the results that we are going to talk into. All right, move on. You can, next slide. Yes. So in the e-procurement, I just summarize what Sanjay was talking into. I'm sure most of us know this. We are used to search, especially for those who are in the different businesses. You always, to start with, you must identify what you want to procure that year, that month, that forecast. You must have something that has been planned to be procured. Is it vehicles? What did you want to do in that year? So you must, one, identify your procurement needs. Those are your requirements. Number two, do you have a budget? As much as, yes, you have identified everything, do you have a budget? You need to then cost those. You can always reach out to the market, come up with a catalog so that it informs all your departments how much this activity will cost, so that they then do the planning. All this can be very, it's soft skill. It's electronic. You can always be communicating, updating on spreadsheets. You can upload in that system, which we are going to demonstrate. So after that, when you have got your identified the things that you want to procure, or the goods or services that you want to have that year, when you then identify the budget, you then can do the planning, the procurement planning. That's where you then determine to say, okay, as per forecast, when can I buy these vehicles that I wanted this year? When can I buy the cement that is wanted in this month? You do that forecast. You do your planning now. It is all embedded in what you call a planned requisitions. Something that is already committed and planned. Then you obtain the approvals to say, these are the requirements that are there. This is the budget that it will cost, and this is the plan that I'm going to buy in the first quarter. I should have bought all this in the next month. Just progressive like that. You can always plan it accordingly. Then it has to be sought an approval. You are doing electronic approval. You can do through e-signature. After having consolidated all your requirements, you send it to the next approval within the approval grid of your organization, so that everybody agrees to a binding planned purchases that are going to happen that year within the allowed budget from finance, right? Within the allowed budget from your source, wherever that the money is coming from, and whatever the planned activities that you have done, that must be approved. Then at the end of the day, you then implement the plan now. You implement using a flawless system, using an electronic system. This is it, where you then send the requisitions to the different suppliers to their email, send the requests to different vendors, to different, just like that. You are now doing it electronically. You are saving time, you are saving from stationery, you are saving from a lot of things. So that system must speak into all that process. And after you execute your procurements, everything is done, then operationally, there will be a monitoring and evaluation on how we did in terms of our implementation. So that is a system that will measure with the numbers to say, we plan to procure this, we plan to buy a property this year, and this is the budget that was there. we sourced for quotations, these were electronically received, this is the award that we did of how much. That report will tell you to say, oh yes, in that first year, we procured everything that we had planned electronically, and that can be shared to everybody. So that is the beauty of electronic planning, which will be spoken into in the electronic system that we are going to demonstrate shortly. Let's move on. Next slide. So I've just plugged a summary of an electronic process. I know you can want to marry that with your own, how you are doing it currently, but we'll just reflect together and see how an electronic planning works. Number one, after identifying, we are saying this is the new process. Remember, we've done our procurement planning. You have identified the needs for that year. You have planned, you have put the plans, everything is approved and all that. So this is now the process, the new process that can be done. So from your annual plan, you then do your strategic sourcing. Strategic sourcing is where you want to acquire through orders, through contracts. Okay, you have done all your consolidation. You have, from Department A, Department B, Finance, Procurement Department, HR Department, every department, IT department. They've given. You have seen all their requirements. Then you consolidate to say, okay, the whole office wants laptops. This one wants 2. That one wants 10. That one, order. You do what you call consolidated planning. You put all those categories together. That category of IT, is it the laptops, everything, you then consolidate together. Then you reach out to the market, and they will quote as per specifications. They will quote you as per specifications. That's what we call strategic sourcing, because you want to buy consolidated, grouped together in a category, in a specific category, grouped together. You want to buy that quickly, and you want to only buy through a contract. Then a contract will produce an order if it is awarded, cheaper, reasonable, available, all those many things that will. So that is strategic. You just have a long-term contract. You don't have to do the quotations. I've seen some offices, they do quotations for motorbike services. You take one motorbike, you go to a vendor, a service garage, they open, they strip it, they quote you, then they box it back, and then you take it to the next. That is the some clumsy business at the end of the day. What we want is we want a strategic sourcing where there's a long term. If it is a contract to service our vehicles, we just send our vehicles to that one garage. It does everything. If it is a contract for recruitment, maybe HR know an agent, they just give the request for a job. That contract will be running. The agent or the recruiting agent then reaches out to the market on how it does. It collects it. So that is the strategic sourcing. You just need to be smart, and that system, we'll see how it works. Then catalog management is where you gather. You remember you had all your procurement plans, all the needs that were identified. You have to then come up with a budget. How much are these things going to cost the office? How much is this lorry going to cost, which is a requirement? How much is this laptop going to cost, which is a requirement? Then you reach out to the market. They give you quotations, various quotations. That what you are doing is where you are formulating or coming up with a catalog, something that will be referred to. I know some of you, your organizations, they've got like a hotel. They've got their catalog already. They've got a price, $120 for bed and breakfast, $85 for bed and breakfast. It's negotiated. That's a catalog. It's already there. So with us, you then use that catalog, which is a reference of the planned activity versus a potential market price. Then that's where you communicate to different departments to say your procurement request, these ones will be within this budget, and you always negotiate around that. So the system should be able to send requests. The system should be able to then produce an automated order an automated order. Once you press your requirements through the system, it should give you a unique number for a requisition, a request, and then once the request is approved, an approval flow within your office. 1, there was a requester. 2, there was a finance reviewer. 3, there was a business approver, right? Or it just goes within the thresholds of your organizational setup. So that system is clean, it's smart. It will tell you, okay, this requisition has been done. It's automated. It then passes on to someone next who is the approver. Then once it is fully approved, that requisition, it will then generate an automated order. It will generate an automated order, and that order will be communicated to the vendor for their implementation of fulfillment. Then from a vendor point of view, once they've got the goods in stock and everything, they will deliver that. And once it is delivered, within the system, the e-procurement should be able to then make you receive the goods. You have to have like a goods received note. There must be a tab that gives you that allowance to receive the goods. And then once they are received, you are simply acknowledging to say the goods have been received as per order, in good price, in good order, in good quality, in good quantity, as exactly how you ordered. There should be that matching. So we are doing what we call three-way matching. You match the invoice, the price there. You match the order, how much the price the order was asking for. You match the goods received. Are they the exact goods that you ordered? And are they the same price, same quantities that the vendor is giving you? Then you go in the system and receive. So once the order is received or the goods are received, then the supplier will invoice the organization. They will send an invoice so that it clears the danger of paying for non-delivered goods. That's a huge risk most organizations we are facing, where you are now made to pay for a ball that was drilled but no water. You see? So, but when you indicate to say on receiving, this is like you are obligated to authorize the organization to pay the vendor so that it has got an audit trail to say, yes, these laptops were received, who then paid these, who received these goods, who then authorized for the goods to be paid. So the invoice must match the order, the goods received, and the price, everything. Then a payment is made. That is how smart the system should inform you to say it's all that care throughout. You have visibility of what is going on. And let's move on to the next slide. So like Sanjay indicated, once you have got any question, please pack it so that after the call, we'll have a session to interact. So that's what I was indicating, just an automated system, just a P2P, procure to pay. That's the abbreviated international code, procure to pay. So first there you see the request. All right, we spoke into the request. There will be in the system, it should be able to enable you. It will be detailed to say what do you want to request. Okay. Number 2, after the request, once the request is approved, it will generate orders. And after orders, once the orders are delivered, it will generate invoices. And then within the community there and the inventory and the sourcing, I highlighted that so that I speak into the reference. This is the platform or the tab where you send your request for quotations to the market. You have already come up with a database, remember? You have got a database that is uploaded in this system. And there you see after sourcing, it shows suppliers. So you can always send a requisition to suppliers that are already entered in the database, not just from nowhere. These are suppliers You know, most supply organizations, they reach out to the market. They then do what we call a market invitation, supply invitation, vendor invitation, so that they then accredit those and then they upload them in their suppliers after approval to say, yes, this supplier has got capacity. This supplier was, your tender committee has gone there for due diligence. They've seen the supplier. It's not a briefcase supplier or something like that. You know they exist. Then you upload them. So when you are doing sourcing now, you send a requisition where you see where it is saying spot bid. You are sending a requisition which had an automated requisition number. Then when you send it out for quotation, you are sending it to that category email of the suppliers. The uploaded supplier, they will be visible in the system because they are linked to your system there. So you send it to your suppliers, then the suppliers respond. So the system will generate its own numbers to say, request number 24681. It then was sent for, it requested for quotation, and automatically when you click to send, it will generate its own sourcing event that will be communicated to the suppliers there. And then everything happens in terms of quotation. So in the sourcing event, you will find there on requisitions on the next tab, where rather on the right hand tab, where it says completed. So there's a time when you send, you give it a timeline. If it is 30 days, you give that requisition 30 days for the suppliers to respond. If it is 7 days, you give them 7 days, all of them. It will have a cutoff period to say this requisition or the sourcing event is ending on the 30th of May 2023 at 12 p.m. Now, when they submit all those quotations, you won't see, you won't open, you won't even know how much was submitted. That is the beauty of a smart electronic system. You won't even know, so that it does not influence a bias. You know, those who know procurement, when we buy, you can always talk to someone to say, no, put it less by $1 so that you become competitive. This electronic system that you must have must speak into all the risk management, the risk mitigations that should follow in terms of the normal practice. So yes, that is the layout of a certain system from somewhere where it speaks into all that cycle, perfect system altogether. We can move on. Just back, just one slide back. Just one slide backwards. I wanted to just demonstrate the next one. Okay, anyway. So this we spoke into to say you raise a requisition, it sends bid sourcing to get the quotations from the market. When the quotations come, you then do your analysis, your evaluation there. And then once you are in agreement, you then place an order. And then after the order is placed, the supplier works on your order, and then the order is received. Then once it is satisfactorily received as per your requirement, then payment is informed to finance to be implemented. That will be the complete workflow in summary. Next. So this is the approval flow that I was talking into. The system has got an embedded approval flow just like that. One, the requester. Who is authorized to request? Not everyone is a requester. Remember, a requester is someone that is delegated. Is it, within the supply chain or procurement team? There must be a buyer. Those are the people who then reach out to the market. They are the people who are authorized to do the work. So they receive a requester from a department, and then the buyer then sends out that approval form. So the requester always communicates to supply chain to say, I want to purchase something like this. So it will be either from any department. Any department can have a requester. Then within supply chain or procurement, these can be people who are mandated within the supply chain, who are authorized to then buy on your behalf. After you make a request, you then send it to buyers. Then the buyers, they reach out to the market, they source for quotations, everything, that sourcing event. And when it is now awarded, it has to be awarded and passed on to finance. He has got 3 bidders, 3 suppliers, but one of the supplier is cheaper. The system will then do an internal analysis to recommend your proposal to say this one is cheaper, but you then, once the buyer awards that, it then gets passed on to finance. Finance, they authenticate the budget. The finance manager, they validate the budget to say the budget is available, the project or the activity was for sure planned that year. You don't just come in and start buying things that were not planned. You remember our plans, we said they must be approved. So you buy according to what is approved. So once finance validate where to charge, whether the money is there, whether the cost is within the available budget, then they will also review that, and it will automatically pass on to the manager. The manager can be different people, they can be different directors, anyone who manages, who is a business approver, they will then authorize that. The system can also give you open, like watchers, someone that is not approving, but only watching the trade, the quotation, everything that is included there. They will just be watching. Those are what we call watchers. They are the experts. They are those experts within that category. They will, if there is an issue, they can put a comment in that requisition. They cannot approve anything, but they will be watching whether it is done procedurally. They can then put a comment, and you observe that comment. So once everything is done, then it is upon the supplier now to deliver in good quantity, on time, all those several errands within the supply chain or procurement management, especially to do with the vendor, the right goods, the right price, the right place, all those many things. So that is then, once the vendor or the supplier has fulfilled that, then it goes to our finance for validating payment to give the money for the services that is provided. So that is just a chart that the system, in summary, should do. The system should help you to expedite that. You can even give the timeline within approval to say within 72 hours this requisition must be fully approved, so that even those who are traveling, it can send automatic notification to say there is a requisition that is pending your approval. Then that way the system will be controlled. So that is a very interactive system that gives you that visibility, that efficiency in executing your workload. If the buyers are sitting on work on the requisition there, it will show, it will trigger within the timeline that it was requested. And even reports can be pulled to say there is a requisition pending buyer action. There is a requisition pending approval. There is this, the system should be very efficient throughout. That is the beauty of e-procurement. Next slide. Okay, so as we conclude, this is the beauty around e-procurement, visibility of all your planned activities. Whatever that you want to procure that year, it will give you visibility. It will give you an audit trail of what you are buying, how you are buying, where you are buying from. Is it an authorized vendor? Is it an authorized customer? Everything. It will just give you, that advantage, especially when you want the reports. The data is invaluable there. It will help you to control things, and even the market itself. You can know what is happening in the market. All those areas that it needs to be highlighted. The system will give you that leverage to negotiate, to even see whether your negotiations, there are savings that you realize over your budget. That is the holistic beauty of e-procurement. So concerning to external supplies, especially the real-time, that system will give you the holistic automated visibility overall. And even the supplier transactions, you can always pull those anytime. Okay. Next slide. So yes, I mean, we talked into, these manual issues. It's gone are those days when we used to write letters, correspondence, and like. Yes, they are still, allowed here and then, but the latest technology, the automation is less the labor there. You have everything, you free stuff into other tasks, once it is smart. So it's improved workflow at the end of the day. That is the beauty of the electronic e-procurement. I doubt if there will be any other slides after this one. If that is the case, it marks the end of the e-procurement process. Thank you so much. Over to you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Obvious. I think you gave a very comprehensive overview of how we are now leveraging technology in making procurement more holistic, comprehensive, and streamlined, and not just within an organization, but overall ecosystem. Because e-procurements, the systems, they can be linked with the systems of the vendors, even vendors of vendors. You can create multiple layers of suppliers over there as well, and manage the entire process on one system with end-to-end visibility. So it's really important to know these advancements in technology that are helping our supply chains. There are so many e-procurement systems which are now being used in the market, and I think in one of Obvious's presentation, there was some options also given, like from Oracle, I think there was SAP, so many others. So in case if you are using some e-procurement systems, please provide us some examples in the chat. So whatever system that you're using, just write that system in the chat for everyone to know. It will be a good experience sharing as well. And also, one of the things that is key with e-procurement is the visibility on the process. And just like Obvious mentioned, that at any given time, anyone can see for a particular procurement operation, what is the progress? Where is it? Is it at some approval? Is it with the vendor to supply the services now? Is it that the services have been rendered, the payment is pending? So at any given point in time, you can see where is it? What is the current status of that procurement? And procurement does not finish until and unless all the steps have completed. So that means even after the services have been rendered, payment has to be made. So only when the payment is done and the final settlement is done, that's when that procurement process finishes and the new one can begin with that. Of course, you can have multiple procurement processes at the same time, but just for an end-to-end understanding, it starts with understanding the demand and ends with payment and performance management for measuring the performance of the vendor. So that's what the entire cycle is. Now, from e-procurement, we are moving to another strategic aspect of procurement, which is leasing. Now, leasing is a fairly new strategy in the public sector. In private sector, I think it is now being used for, I think, 2 decades, I guess. I mean, at least in the Western countries, they are using it for a very long time. In Asia, in Africa, it's pretty new. And in public sector, I would say it is still a very new concept to understand and to implement. Now, so what is leasing and why are we talking about this in strategic procurement? Leasing is important to know when we are purchasing heavy equipment or any and we're making any capital expenditure. So if we talk about health system, when we are buying large equipment like an X-ray machine or a CAT scan machine or a dialysis machine, which are very expensive to buy, leasing can be a viable option in those cases. And why? So if you see on screen, leasing is a practice of leasing equipment, devices, and facilities instead of purchasing them outright. Health facilities can lease equipment. Um, Laboratories can lease equipment which they need for analysis or diagnostics, or even a supply chain organization can lease trucks or even warehouses, for their operation. So why, leasing is important is because if you don't have big capital in your hand, it will be difficult for you to buy these big equipment. And in those cases, if you still want them, uh, it will be difficult for you to raise that kind of money. So that's where leasing comes into play, because then you don't have to spend a huge amount of money at once. You can spend that over a period of time and still be able to use the services of that equipment on, let's say, in supply chain, you can also lease trucks. So on screen, you see some benefits of leasing. So in healthcare, you can please mute yourself if there is no question, and if you have a question, please write it on the chat. Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Yeah, favorite, it's coming from you to if you can make yourself possible. Okay. All right. So when we talk about health services, there are big equipment that are needed in hospitals and health facilities. Instead of purchasing them, which requires a lot of money, they can lease them from the providers directly, and what also allows facilities and hospitals to access the latest medical equipment. Because in leasing, a lot of providers also give you the option to keep on upgrading your equipment whenever a new version is launched. So let's say you start with X-ray version 1. In 3 years' time, the company has launched X-ray version 2. So they will replace your X-ray version 1 with X-ray version 2 if you had opted for that plan. The second benefit is cash flow and capital conservation. Like I said earlier, you don't need to pay upfront a massive amount of money, but you pay in a very predictable amount of payment every month or every quarter to the company who's leasing you the equipment. The maintenance and repair costs can be minimized as well, because in your leasing agreement, the company itself, the provider itself will do that for you instead of you buying the entire equipment and then paying separately for maintenance and repair. Some leasing agreements can also offer flexibility, where at the end of the lease term, they can either give you the equipment at a highly discounted price, or you can also return the equipment to them, or you can extend the lease and get a new equipment as well. So there are multiple options that can happen at the end of a lease period. Now, more specifically in health, where every other year there are new technological advancements, leasing becomes quite efficient, because then anytime there is a new upgrade to the machine or a new technology is there, you can get that technology without paying massive amounts of money. And then another key benefit is something called asset lifecycle management. So you don't need to worry about disposing of that big equipment if you purchase it, or any other cost related to that purchase. It will be managed by the provider, like spare parts, reagents, maintenance, training, servicing. So all those things will be part of the leasing agreement instead of you doing it separately, once you buy that. So there are multiple benefits of leasing, especially in healthcare. And leasing is can be a strategic choice instead of purchasing directly built equipment, and that's why we're talking about it in strategic procurement, because it's a strategic choice that you decided that okay, because we don't have that much money to buy 10 X-ray machines, which are required in 10 cities, we rather lease 10 X-ray machines for 10 years. You will, spend. This is leasing. Now, a key question is, which we can discuss. Now, this maybe we can come back on it again. What can be some of the challenges to leasing? And anyone, I mean, who wants to talk about this, but maybe obvious. If you have any points where you have seen leasing and it was not very fruitful, maybe some challenges that you want to share. Please, anyone else can also share, but we'll be starting with that, please. Yeah, obvious. Please unmute yourself. Please. Unmute it. Yes,
thank you. So is it this question that we should attempt, or even the
yes. No,
okay.
this one on the screen.
Okay. So, like, what would be some challenges to leasing? Leasing, where we're talking into strategic sourcing, you are looking at long-term, smart way of doing business. You make long-term contracts, and once you have the contracts, you have got a timeline. You have got control. You have got the way. Making sure that this does not go out of range, this does not go out of budget. We are only doing the purchase. Is it maybe for pharmaceuticals? You've got farmers that you will always get the medication from, or like that for a specific period. Whereas with leasing, you are like mandated for a little bit longer. Very long. Someone is unmuted.
Yeah, I'm just checking. Okay. Yeah, please carry on.
Thank you. So I'm sure, like, all of us know or understand the leasing. Like, you've got maybe big machines that you lease from some equipment, something like that. So those are not your machinery. Those are not your equipment. You are just listing where they would want it at the end of the day. So, but it's long term, and as it is, you the competition there. You are stuck. You are with that contract for forever. Like we said, you don't own the equipment, you don't own the property, you don't own. It's not yours. You don't have any control over the contract terms. Like they are that long. You cannot. It might. A list can be endless in a way, though early termination can be invited, but then we are saying that list must be controlled. That list must be within your jurisdiction. So those are the challenges with the leasing as opposed to strategic sourcing. Leasing is kind of like long-term. You don't own it, as it were. You know, you're like bound. Every time the price changes is at their discretion, because those are lease. You know, you have to read the terms very carefully and understand what are you, leasing within the pharmaceuticals, the warehouse. Are they the ones that are going to bring the medication to you alone? You know, do you have any competition around the market? You are like stuck with that specific. But yeah, that's where I can plug quickly on the disadvantages or challenges of listening.
Yeah, Makhosi, over to you. You raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. Just to add on to what Mr. Omias just said now, I think if you have a service provider who's a poor service provider and you're stuck in the list, you might end up with no services at all, because it's an expensive piece of equipment and it would be hard to replace quickly. So you need to also have maybe a bit of flexibility, and you'd end up getting stuck with the service provider who can't supply. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very good points from both Obvious and Makhosi. I will summarize that shortly, but is there any other points where we can talk about challenges of leasing? I mean, anyone can chip in here who has any experience with leasing. Otherwise, I will also talk about a few more points and summarize this to the next point. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay. If not, then yes, absolutely what Obvious and Makhosi said. In some cases, if you are going to lease out an equipment or, say, for example, trucks or anything, most likely the terms are given by the owner. You know, so owner of that equipment or owner of that property, they decide the terms, and it's not really you. When we talk about leasing, it's not really buying a product. It's actually uh, more like a service agreement. So do not confuse this strategy of leasing to buying a product. Buying a product is a different type of procurement exercise. Leasing is an altogether different type, another type of procurement exercise, which is more related to acquiring services. So when you are acquiring certain services, and in this case, when we talk about leasing, you have to make sure that whatever terms that you receive from the provider, there are certain flexibilities. And the flexibilities should be in terms of the performance, should be in terms of maintenance, repair, insurance, all these things, and also in terms of breaking the lease contract in case of non-performance, just like Obvious mentioned. Because if you don't do these things, then you may end up with a poorly performing device, a poorly performing provider, and maybe in a couple of years, when the technology gets upgraded, you end up with a poor or you end up with a old technological product rather than with a new one. So although leasing is very beneficial, but it is only beneficial when your terms of leasing are as per what you want, flexible and mutually agreed with the provider, and that the provider gives you good service. So there are always pros and cons of everything. Leasing is one strategic option for large pieces of equipment, warehouses, trucks, which require capital. If you have the capital, if the organization has the capital, then yes, it's good to purchase them. Sometimes maybe not. In cases, like I said, when technological advancements are quite frequent and you don't want to end up with an old piece of equipment. So you may want to structure your lease agreement in a way that every time there is an upgrade, the provider gives you the new one, and also trains you in the new one, because you may not be able to manage the new one. So all those things goes into consideration when it comes to leasing. So Now that we discussed two different aspects of strategic procurement. One was e-procurement, second is leasing. Now we have one more topic to touch upon. Another strategic choice is called pooled procurement. And I think this is something that a lot of you may have heard. So pooled procurement is become increasingly organizations who are small. It is kind of becoming difficult to procure products because of rising costs or the need for greater efficiency. So pooled procurement is one strategy where multiple organizations can come together, become a group, and then purchase those commodities or items together. What that does is it gives them a better buying power, it gives them more leverage over the suppliers, and it also pools the resources of all those organizations together so that they collectively spend less in purchasing the same amount of product, which otherwise they were spending just for purchasing for themselves. So with these in mind, a lot of organizations are now setting up group procurement or pooled procurement mechanisms where they are not buying one by one, but they are buying in bulk and then distributing based on the need of each of the entities. Okay, and that is what pooled procurement is, and it can happen at multiple levels. So, for example, a very simple example of pooled procurement, although you don't think it like this, when in your countries in public sector, instead of each public health facility, hospital, primary healthcare center purchasing themselves, their requirements are pooled and purchased by the central medical store. That's also a type of pooled procurement, right? To a very global pooled procurement system, which is managed by the Global Fund, which is one of your key donors for diseases like HIV, TB, and malaria. The Global Fund pools resources for more than 120 countries, and then they pool the requirements, they pool the money from different places, and then they procure it from global suppliers, and then they distribute it to the countries, the products, they distribute the products back to the countries. So that's a very global example of pool procurement. In between, there are multiple examples in East African faith-based organization, or several others. Like for example, the USAID GHSC program is a kind of a version of pool procurement. Even UNICEF and Gavi, they do pool procurement for vaccines, and there are multiple other examples. So why pool procurement? What are the benefits? They come with multiple benefits. First of all, is cost saving, because if you are purchasing products and services in bulk, overall per cost will definitely get reduced, and that will result in cost saving over a period of time. Your bargaining power, your purchase power increases, so you can negotiate much better with the suppliers. You can, with the limited resources for each organization, it becomes difficult. But if you pool them, your overall resources become higher, and it may become much easier to manage, larger procurement if you pool your resources. It can also result in improved quality. Since you are demanding larger quantities, you can then also ask for better quality products and impose stricter quality standards. This will eventually lead to better quality products being purchased and distributed across the groups. You can also reduce your risks. If you're procuring individually, the risks are only managed by one organization. But if you are purchasing in a group, in a pool, then those risks, they also distribute across the board. So hence, risk on one organization becomes slightly lesser when it is a pooled procurement system. And of course, it promotes collaboration. So when you're working in a pooled procurement system, you are working across the globe, you may be working across the region. That will lead to increased knowledge sharing because one person may not know everything. So you may get to know something better from your colleague who's part of the group. They may also know something that you know, and they may. So it promotes collaboration. So this is something that you must think about when in this scenario. And I started with the example of COVID-19, whereby a lot of organizations, they don't look at this as a strategy because of the issue of control. That is an operational challenge of pooled procurement, but that's not a deal breaker. The reason many organizations today they don't do pooled procurement is because they don't want to lose control over their own systems. But that is the wrong way to look at things, right? Uh, and that is why we struggled a lot in COVID-19. Imagine a scenario where, in Africa, for example, different regions would have been working on pooled procurement mechanisms. You know, they would have then better bargaining power to tell the companies in India or China or wherever they are and the respective governments to not shut down import and export and find ways in a much quicker or in a much timely manner. But since they were individual countries with smaller bargaining and purchase powers, their voices were heard quite late, and hence you saw massive stockouts in so many countries in Africa because the products were not coming in from outside. But imagine if this was regional bloc doing the negotiation on behalf of each country, it may have had a different outcome. So I go back to my initial example to just tell you, just give you an idea how if you pool resources, you may have to let go of some of the control, but the positives are much higher and they're much larger when we compare it against some of the smaller negatives. But still, there are some challenges. There may be some operational challenges which may always render pool procurement ineffective. Uh, any idea what they are? When I talked about one of them, but there can be other challenges which render pool procurement ineffective. Maybe obvious, Makosi, Wilson, if you guys are still there, you may want to chip in with some responses. For anyone else, if you have seen pool procurement in action, maybe some of our participants from the UN organization, because UN has been doing pool procurement for a very long time. If you have seen some challenges in your organization, please write it in the chat, or you are also welcome to speak, or you're also welcome to ask questions. So I will just take a quick pause here and invite some responses to this question on the screen.
Oh, hi, Sanjay. I can jump in maybe just to kick that. Yes. I think food procurement is quite complex, especially when I can take it in the sense of countries. Say different countries want to procure a certain medicine, say paracetamol, for instance, in bulk for different countries. It becomes complex when the consumption is different for each country, and the quantities have to be different as well. The logistics to get the product to every country is different. And ultimately, maybe one or two may benefit from the reduced costs, but maybe the other ones, it may not make a difference, or it may even prove to be more expensive than buying individually. So it's I think it needs to be really analyzed and all the pros and cons looked at per product. And I also think it perhaps also can limit to the number of products that are procured in this way, leaving the majority of products still procured in the usual way. So I think it's debatable, its value, but I stand to be corrected. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great response, Makosi. Obvious, you also wanted to say, please go ahead.
Yes. So just to write on Marcos, the input for sure. You know, you have that negotiated power because of volume, you know. But especially when you are buying it from outside the countries or, you know, borders from your country, yes, the increased power is there because, you know, you've got that, you know, negotiation, you know, from your supplier because of the volume for sure. But in terms of timeline now to, you know, import such, that's where it can take time, you know, and even where you have consolidated everything, but then the product might delay to be, you know, fulfilled by the vendor. They may not have that quantity in stock, so they may ask for time to, you know, then seek it to be spooled together. You know, it will take time for delivery at the end of the day. So yeah, those are some of the spooling issues, rather pooling issues, where you consolidate all your procurements. You can always check whether, especially after COVID, you know, where the global supply chain had such challenges. Most of us, maybe you wanted to import vehicles, you know, you find the cargo is not coming on time, and maybe the ship is waiting for a number of consolidation, and then you hear a flood stories, especially those who are in South Africa, you know, the Durban port when it was flooded. You know, that total delay. Yes, your insurance might take on board, but the timeline that was taken now, your pooled commodities, it takes long. So those are the pros and cons of pooling. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Makhosi and Obvious. Great points. And I think one of the key issues of why we are not able to see a better pooling procurement in Africa is because of lack of harmonization in regulatory and public procurement systems across countries. Because every country they have their own laws, and they dictate how regulatory and procurement policies are run. But of course, things are changing. There are certain blocks, certain regions who are looking at harmonization from regulatory to procurement. And as we move along with those harmonization systems, we may see organizations also come together to create standardized policies for import and export, regulatory, procurement, paving the way for regional pool procurement. So that day might not be too far. As a principle, pool procurement is a great strategy to get lower prices, better quality. But yes, there are massive operational challenges that need to be figured out before you start any pooling systems. I would recommend everyone to go and read the pool procurement system set up by MEDS in Kenya with Ecumenical Pharmaceutical Network, and I can five other faith-based central medical stores in East and Southern Africa. There are I think six organizations from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. There's I think one more country, four countries. I will try to find that case study and send to you as well. Or you can also go to B-Skill Hive and join the active learning session. There you will find this case study as well. And active learning sessions are free. So you need to just create an account and you will be able to see that. That case study is really great because they are doing it successfully, irrespective of being in different countries, but interwoven through a common faith-based system through which they have set up this entire system of pool employment. So I would definitely encourage you to go and read that. I think Dr. Chabaya is here with us. Dr. Chabaya, if you are here, maybe before we go to our final section of this webinar, you may want to just give quick remarks, unless you are with us until the end. Then we can hear from you at the very end here. Dr. Jabaya, I mean, totally your call if you want to speak now or at the end. Okay, maybe you're not able to communicate now. So we'll try again at the end. Okay, so this was, the part of strategic procurement. We talked about setting up a strategic procurement direction, a unit, how to set it up. Then we looked at some strategies, leveraging technology with the procurement, options of leasing, pooled procurement. But this is just tip of the iceberg. Procurement is a big topic, and it is like obvious also mentioned at the very beginning that we cannot make you experts in strategic procurement in one session. So to have a bit more of understanding on basic ideas of procurement and the overall supply chain, we also invite you to join the collective learning certificate one, supply chain for him, which is currently being advertised in Zimbabwe and Botswana by the IAPHL country chapters in Zimbabwe, Botswana, in collaboration with CMCOM and of course B-Skill. So this course is currently being advertised. You can get the discount right now, and I think until 28th of May, you can get the discount. This course has been developed by B-Skill, which is an organization based in India, but roots in Europe and Africa as well through partners. We and we're working towards a community of competent professionals who can lead sustainable change in their own environments. So this course is the second cohort in Zimbabwe. The first cohort happened earlier this year. It was finished earlier this year, although it started, I think, in December last year. I will give you some glimpses of the last cohort as well. So this course, it will run for about 4 weeks. It is based on European qualifications framework. It is designed based on that. It fosters peer-to-peer learning. There will be some learning competition, discussions, classroom sessions on Zoom, just like this, but more in a workshop format. And then it will also result in an international CPD certificate, plus professionals in Zimbabwe who are registered with the Pharmacy Council of Zimbabwe. They will also get a PC-led approved CPD certificate in Zimbabwe. This is a sample certificate that is given generally. And of course, for the ones who are also registered with the Pharmacy Council of Zimbabwe, you will also get those CPD points, which you can, then add onto your annual CPD register with the PC there. So very quickly, let me show you some glimpses of the last cohort. This was these were taken at the final community event and certification ceremony. So there were about 39 students who were part of this cohort, and they were felicitated at the end of the program. So this course, it's a completely online course. The content is on the Hive platform. You go there, you create an account, and once you enroll in the course, you can go through the content, and then every week There are classroom sessions on Zoom based on a particular topic linked to the course material that you are going through on the online platform. So after you finish your curriculum online, there is a final assessment. And once you pass that assessment, you get the certificate. And then since we are doing it with national bodies, so at the end of the program, we organize these community events where you can meet with everyone who is part of the course. You can have dialogue. There are certain discussions that we also carry on through those community events. And it's a way of, growing that local community, which we are very happy to share with the IAPHL country chapter, who's a great partner in the country and in the region. So this course is currently being advertised, like I said. Discounts are going on. So if you register and pay before 28, you will be able to get the discount. If you have already registered for it and maybe thinking about paying, so this is the right time. You will be able to learn way more about procurement and other supply chain topics. And of course, be part of this growing community that we're building in Zimbabwe and the Southern African region. I go back to, okay, some email got been shared. Okay, yes, we will share the recorded version with everyone who had registered for this webinar, definitely. I go back to Dr. Chabaya, if still with us. We would really like to hear from you. Maybe you can close this webinar because the idea was for you to open it. Unfortunately, you were not available. Maybe if you can close this webinar, that will be great. If not, then I will invite the coordinators, Wilson, Makosi, to say a few words and close this. But maybe before, I would like to, appreciate and thank Mr. Obvious Mohan's time. You have been a great ambassador, and thank you for bringing your knowledge and expertise to this group. Continuously being a supply chain region, and especially in Zimbabwe. So thank you so much, Obvious. We really appreciate your time and presence here. Wilson, Makosi, and Dr. Chabaya, please say a few words and then we can close this webinar. Any other information, we will definitely share everyone through email. Wilson, Makosi, Dr. Chabaya.
Thank you, Sanjay. And thank you, everyone, for your time this afternoon. And I think you shared some valuable insights, and we appreciate that. And I'd just like to urge the listeners or the participants today to always keep an eye out for future webinars. They're absolutely free, but you get to interact and learn from industry experts, especially on supply chain, and as well as the experienced trainers that we have. And these are absolutely free. So just keep an eye out for them. And I'll hand you over to Wilson to end the meeting. Thank you.
Hello. Hello, please.
Yeah, Lawrence, you want to say something?
Yes, would the slides be shared with the video?
Yes.
So whoever
had registered will be shared with this meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Wilson, can you come online, please?
Thank you, Sanjay, Obvious, Makosi, and everyone. Thank you for an excellent presentation. Thank you so much. I noticed Mr. Chabaya is around. So, Mr. Chabaya, could you do the closing remarks on behalf of IAPHL? Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Ndomba. Thank you, everyone. I think I will quickly do a vote of thanks to the presenters. Maybe let me start by saying it's our pleasure as a chapter to all the participants who attended this webinar today, and to the esteemed speakers and guests from Zimbabwe and from India, Mr. Sanjay, CEO and our facilitator in this webinar from B-Skilled Global, Mr. Obvious Maunze, Supply Chain Manager, World Vision Zimbabwe, Mr. Makosi Sibanda, the Interim Chairperson, IHPO Botswana, and our own esteemed partner and facilitator, Ms. Wilson Shandomba. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to say thank you for attending and for sharing with us vast experience and knowledge as a chapter and our members. We really appreciate and our heartfelt thankful. I'm actually expressing them on behalf of all other members. Maybe for members' information, please note that this is our first webinar for year 2023, and it is our agenda and objective that we have many of these. And I was going to ask, or else I would say I will ask on behalf of all the participants today, the organizers, that is our B-Skilled Global partner, Mr. Ndoma Cosmos, and other partners. Next time, to continue engaging you participants, to bring forward any topics, in what areas that you feel necessary should be discussed. These are good platforms for improvement. These are good platforms, for development. Even any other challenges that you are facing in your respective areas. These are the areas where we should come in as a team with experiences that we have in different circles to share and encourage a continuous improvement. I think in short, I thank you, colleagues, and we look forward, to more of these sessions. Thank you, Mr. Ndomba. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Chavaya. Thanks for your kind words and your wisdom. Definitely, B-Skill has always, we have been looking at IUPH in Zimbabwe as a valuable partner, and any webinar needs new topics. We are always, developing new topics, and this was actually a new topic that was developed in close association with Mr. Obvious Mahumze. Similarly, with other experts, we can develop other topics which are of interest to the IUPH Zimbabwe chapter. And not just Zimbabwe, but maybe the region, starting with Botswana and other country chapters. We can then organize much more harmonized and regional webinars, which are beneficial for everyone. So thank you so much for this advice, and we will definitely take that into consideration and move towards that in constant dialogue with you and your team. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. The presentation will be shared. The meeting recording will be shared. And anyone who is registered with Pharmacy Council of Zimbabwe, please send us your name at the email address that I mentioned on chat, info@bskill.com. If you are registered with PCZ, we will send you a certificate worth 5 CPD points for participating in this webinar. We will also be checking that you actually spend the threshold of 60 minutes in this webinar. So we have ways to check that. If you have done that, the CPD certificate with PCZ will be awarded to you. Thank you so much, everyone. Wish you all the best for the weekend. Do take a look at the Collective Learning Certificate course. It has been advertised through multiple platforms. You can ask IUPHL coordinators. or you can also go to B-Skills website and you will find that information. Until next time, I say thank you, and I wish to see you all again in another platform. Thank you so much.